Hello, I'm Roger Abelenda. I'm from Uruguay. I'm CTO at Abstracta and I have more than 17 years of experience in development. Today, I'm presenting to you JMeter DSL, a new way of implementing or scripting your JMeter performance tests in a faster and better way than using JMeter by itself. But before we go into that, we are going to talk about JMeter. Let's review about JMeter. So JMeter is a great tool. It's one of the most popular tools for doing performance testing. It's an open source tool. It provides you with a GUI which allows you to create performance tests in a codeless or low-code fashion through the GUI. Is very popular. It's one of the most popular tools of performance testing. There is a lot of documentation, a great community around it. It has a lot of flexibility since it provides support for many features, among which a lot of protocol support from mainframe testing. You can do HTTP testing as well, access to databases. There is an extension or a feature for everything mostly. It also provides it is very flexible and extensible. It provides you with a plugin mechanism that allows you to implement your own features. There is a big plugin ecosystem on JMeter. It also There are a lot of tools built around JMeter as well. It has a big ecosystem. For instance, there are tools for converting from different formats to JMeter. There are tools for running your test at the scale. And on top of all that, it is built on Java, so you can get all the benefits of the Java ecosystem. You can use any of the Java libraries and use some custom code and incorporate it in your JMeter and performance test script easily. That being said, there are also some nuances on the usage of JMeter, some drawbacks on its usage, mainly due to the nature of its UI and the way you create test plans. When you create a test plan in JMeter UI, it generates an XML file. This XML file is quite verbose, it's very extensive, and it's difficult when you start versioning it in Git, for instance, to keep track of the changes and to review the changes and identify what actually has changed. In addition to that, it's a little slower when you start creating test plan daily to create the test plan, to script it, and the visibility of the test plan. It's hindered a little by the UIs. Sometimes it's difficult to understand what are the actual things that this test plan has in particular, what things that you have set on JMeter, unless you go over all the features around. So it's a little slow for that. Another feature that's missing on JMeter is the built-in ability to do assertions or acceptance criteria on the result of your performance test. For instance, if you want to check that the response time, the overall response time for all the requests is below some threshold, there is no easy way to do that, and we will see that there are some other better ways to do, or some ways to do this without using the UI. And finally, one of the limitations or drawbacks of using JMeter UI as it is modularization of your test plans. When you want your test plan to start growing above certain threshold, you will start wanting to modularize and reuse some part of the test plan. In JMeter, this is achieved through different JMX files, again, XML files, which you have to start opening and reviewing to get a full picture of the entire test plan, which is not that optimal, and you cannot navigate. That being said, there are other open source tools, the other performance testing tools that solve some of these drawbacks or most of these drawbacks or issues, but also have some limitations and don't allow you to reuse or take advantage of all the benefits that JMeter provides. Some of these tools might be K6, Gatling, Taurus. There are many others, but you get some of these issues solved, but you lose a lot of the benefits of JMeter by itself. So with JMeter DSL, this tool that we have built, we try to get all the benefits of both approaches, all the benefits of JMeter and also all the benefits that other tools provide, solving all these JMeter nuances or drawbacks. So now I will give you a demo, JMeter DSL, so you get an idea of how it looks, how to use it. You get an idea also of the benefits of using it over using JMeter GUI. After that, we'll do a summary, but let's jump right into the demo. Uh, for that, I will create a new project in IntelliJ IDEA. You can use whatever IDE you like Eclipse, NetBeans, whatever. I use IntelliJ because I like it. But that being said, this I'm going to create a new project. This is not the way we usually encourage teams to create the performance test. We usually encourage teams to add the performance test in the same repository, in the same project as you have the production code. But doing that, you have both the production code and the test that production code in the same place, version in the same way, so you get the easily understand what this test is testing about. And also, it's easier for collaborating between performance experts and developers. It's also easier, avoids having to context switch between the two. And finally, but most importantly, allows you to do more continuous performance testing, allow you to run this easily run performance tests on your application in continuous integration without having to have different or special approaches. But all that about regardless of all that, I will start a new project from scratch so you get an idea. And since I don't have a production code, it's the way I will do it in this demo. Let's create a new project, JMeter DSL test. It is a Maven project, Java project. So we create it. And now I'm going to add some dependencies to the project. For that, I will go to a sample project that we provide. You can use it as a reference. I'm going to copy this part, which contains some things that are pretty standard for Maven or Java projects. For instance, we have included JUnit as a testing framework. You can use whatever testing framework. You can use TestNG, Spock, whatever you like as a testing framework. I have also included here AssertJ, which is a library I like for doing assertions, but you can use whatever assertion library, assertion mechanism that you want. You can use Hamcrest, you can use JUnit built-in assertions or other framework library assertions. And we have also included this. Well, these two dependencies are the usual dependencies you will include in any project for testing your project. And this is the only specific dependency that we include to use JMeter Java DSL. You don't have to install JMeter. You don't have to do anything. Just with this dependency, you will be able to create your script and run it locally. Let's do some update here so dependencies are downloaded and configured properly in the project. And now I will create a new test, performance test. Okay, and now we create a test inside of this and just name it test. That's it. Okay, now we are going to create a test plan that is the basic construct of the performance test in JMeter. And you see here the IDE is automatically showing me that there is something wrong with those red characters. I will just hit Alt Enter and I automatically solve that, so I get the import automatically. I will just put an asterisk here so I don't have to add more imports. And right now I can start creating my test plan. The first thing that we will do is adding a thread group. A thread group is a concept of JMeter that allows you to define how the load in your performance test will be generated, how many threads or virtual users or parallel requests you will use, and how many times each of these users or threads will execute a certain flow or certain actions. Okay, so we'll start with thread. You see, with the IDE, you get automatic completion, so it's easy to search for a component and to get the list of all the components that are available and even all the options. This is a little better than the JMeter UI. We'll see how you will create a test, but this greatly makes speed ups the test plan scripting and creation. For this test, as you will usually do, we will create a thread group with just one thread and one iteration. So we'll just execute once, and we will test an HTTP. You see again automatic completion, but not only that. If you hit Control K in my case, Control J in my case, you get embedded documentation of these components. We have included a lot of information in the documentation, so you get all the documentation right here. You don't have to go to another web page which has the documentation for the component. You just get everything in here in the IDE, and you don't have to context switch, which makes testing scripting faster and discovering elements and understanding them faster. We have included also some advices, some tips and warnings in this documentation. I will just create HTTP sampler with a URL. Okay, HTTPS. I will just use a sandbox app. Open card. Okay, and just with that, I have a test plan. What should we do now? We just hit dot, and here we have different options. I will just run it locally. That's just with that, you have a functional performance test that just execute one request. But usually when you start creating your performance test, we will leave it running. You will want, while you are scripting your test, review each of the requests that you are making and the responses that you're getting, so you know if the service, if you're making a proper request, and if the service is responding as you expect. Here I have done one request, and JMeter DSL already provides you with the execution details. You see, we have already run a JMeter script here without having to install JMeter. So now I will add something to review requests and responses, which is results tree visualizer. Just with that, this component is handy when you want to test, when you're starting to create your test plan. Usually after you have your test plan ready, you remove this component, since it's only helpful for reviewing requests and responses. And once you have your test plan ready, you don't want to review your requests and responses, and you won't be able to review them when you are on the CI/CD. But we do provide some other elements for logging the requests and responses and review that. You can check the documentation, but here you can see the request details with the headers, response details, and the like. So this is usually a good thing when you're starting a test plan. Another good thing that you can do is that you will do now is, okay, I want to iterate maybe 10 threads, 100 iterations each, and I want to review how the system behaves under load, but I want to review it locally without having to install anything, and I want to do it quickly. Okay, so for that we have provided an element, another component or another module that you can include, that is just dashboard. Okay, just with that, we can, it's resolving dependencies. Okay, and just with that, we can add here a dashboard visualizer. Again, we can import the dependency, automatically do it. And now, if we run this, we are able, without having to install anything, to review general statistics of the service and review how my service is behaving under this load. The test is starting, and here are the charts and the general statistics, and you can see here in real time how the service is behaving. With that, you can get some knowledge on what are good thresholds that you can put on your test plan. What is the actual, when the test should fail and when it should pass. Okay, I will stop it since I don't want to run everything. But that being said, again, this is only, as it is a visual UI, you will only use it once and remove it. But now that I have a general overview of how my service behaves, I will usually want to do some assertion to make the test fail when the threshold is not accomplished and pass otherwise. So for that, I will need the statistics, stats. You can put whatever name you like. We create a local variable here with auto completion from the IDE, and now I can use assertions. Assert that stats dot overall, you can check the overall statistic or by label if you have different requests and you want to label them. Okay, and I can check the sample time percentile 99. This is a usual metric that you can use for checking the response time is in certain threshold. And it's a good practice as well. So I have to include an import here, I believe. Import static method. Yeah, this one. And now it's less than duration of seconds 5. So this test will run the performance test from JMeter and will afterwards, after it ends, it will check if this response time percentile 99 is less than 5 seconds. If it is not, the test will fail and your pipeline will fail, the continuous integration will fail, otherwise it will pass. Okay, so this is great. I mean, some other things that you can do, for instance, I'm doing a get request in HTTP sampler. If you want to be able to review what other options you have with HTTP sampler, you just do a dot as we did with the test plan, remember? So here you have all the options. For instance, if you want to do a post method, you can just specify the body and the content type. And here is another benefit of using the JMeter DSL. That is that it already provides you with best practices and required parameters for each type of usage. For instance, it's quite common in JMeter to create a post request and missing the HTTP header for the content type. And if you do that, you usually will get an expected response from the server. Right here, you see that every time you do a post, you will be required to specify a body and a content type. The same goes with other required parameters, like in here, the threads and iteration or threads and duration. So it's simpler and we are guiding you better than the JMeter UI when creating a test plan to allow you to identify what things you should specify and when. Now let's compare this to JMeter, okay? To JMeter scripting. Let's create a test plan. I have already opened the JMeter UI here. Usually you go here, add. You have to know that thread groups are inside threads, and you have, yeah, this is the element. You have to know what of all these elements you have to specify, whatever. I will start, and now we have to add a sampler. You have to find the HTTP sampler and know that it's a sampler here. So you get it. And now you have to specify all these things, probably opencart.abstracta.us. You see, just with specifying this will make the same request as JMeter DSL, but it's not as simple to understand that I just have to specify this. Do I have to specify the port or don't? Do I have to specify the path or don't? You know? So, and there are many other options here in advance. You don't get like kind of a guide there to run this. And in fact, if you run this, no, I don't want to save it. Okay, if you run this, you get mostly the same error behavior as we got in the initial execution of JMeter DSL. You will usually add a view results tree and then run it. Okay, I get the request and response data. You should remove this once you have your test plan ready. You specify threads and iterations, different threads and iterations. For the charts, there is no built-in element that provides with all the information. You have to add different elements. But not only that, you will need also in general to add other elements that are kind of a best practice in JMeter, but are not included by default in the test plan, unless you use templates. For instance, an element that is usually used with HTTP requests is HTTP cookie manager. And usually this cookie manager, you should clear the cookies on each iteration to get an expected behavior. This cookie manager is usually good or necessary when you do logins and you start doing some other requests after the logins. This thing is not actually required by JMeter DSL because JMeter DSL automatically includes the cookie manager and includes the cache manager. It also includes by default all the best practices or the most common scenarios when you are testing your application. Okay, now let's add the other element that was missing, that is usually missing in JMeter test plan, that is the HTTP cache manager. Let's remove this. Okay, and this is how the test plan looks. You can compare this to this. It looks pretty similar, but one thing that is important is the visibility. Here you see everything that we have set. For instance, if I set here to download embedded resources, I see that the download embedded resources is right there, right? But here, to know if this element is downloading embedded resources or not, I have to go to advanced, and I also have to check if they retrieve embedded resources and this parallel, because usually browsers use parallel downloads if you want to emulate a browser. So you have to know more about JMeter, and you have to go over, if you have many of these elements, you have to go over each of them, clicking and reviewing all the different settings, basic settings and advanced settings. So that gets a little slow. With the DSL, you get all the full picture in one place. Okay, one final comparison between JMeter DSL and JMeter GUI is that we can compare the resulting file for versioning. Here, this test plan is this file with all these settings is the same one as this one. You can see that it's pretty easy to review and identify things here, and it's quite difficult to do it here since it has a lot of features and you have to know what each of these properties or features does, so it's not that simple. Okay, so now that we have our test and we have implemented a threshold on it, the next step will be, okay, I want to have my data, my historic runs of this, and I want to have real-time reporting as well, as we did with the dashboard, but in a way that I can later on review it, or I can review it on the fly, and I don't need a UI where the test plan is running. For doing that, it's quite easy. We do provide a user guide with all the features that JMeter DSL provide, with pieces of advice. We have invested a lot of time and effort on this, and it provides you with a progressive and easy way of start understanding JMeter concept, but also through the JMeter DSL usage. And in particular, if we go to reporting, there is this concept of InfluxDB and Grafana. You can use InfluxDB and Grafana, but this will require you to have an InfluxDB server and Grafana server installed. We do provide in this guide also with a Docker Compose file that you can use to spin up locally InfluxDB and Grafana with a already configured dashboard for Grafana. And just by including the InfluxDB listener with this setting in the test plan, that I have already locally running an InfluxDB run, I run this and I can get a nice report as this one. You see, you get all this, and this is updated on real time, and it's free. You can even check all the historic runs of a test plan and compare them and review different statistics and customize the dashboard. So it's very flexible and very powerful. This is like the recommended way of creating performance reports. In other case, in any ways, there are other scenarios. You can check the user guide again for other features that we provide for reporting. But now that we have our test plan, we have done some reporting, a usual scenario that you will look is to scale your test. So right now I have run my test from my local machine, but if you want to actually run a performance that will load to a production environment with a huge load, you will usually be limited by the hardware where you're running the test. So you will usually want to start using multiple machines or a cluster of machines to generate the load instead of just one machine. So for doing that, in JMeter DSL, we provide different JMeter, we call it engines. So the default one is the embedded engine that you use with run. It just allows you to run in this machine, but you can use also BlazeMeter engine that we provide, Octoperf engine that we provide, and BlazeMeter and Octoperf are services that allow you to run in the cloud. They are paid services. They provide a free tier that you can use for trying out the services. They are great because they provide all the infrastructure already configured. They provide nice reporting with all the historical data and additional tools on top of that. But if you don't want to spend on that and you want to actually spend on creating your own infrastructure, which is kind of costly. It might be difficult, but in any case, if you want to do, you can implement. You can also use your the JMeter built-in feature for that, which is remote testing, or what we call distribute JMeter engine. In this case, I will, and we provide a support for that. In this scenario, I will just run in, and here you see that I require an engine. I will use the BlazeMeter engine. That is easy to set up. Instead of dashboard, BlazeMeter. Okay. Let's update dependencies again. And now, new Blaze. Oh, it's updating. Oh yeah, I have to remove this. BlazeMeter engine. You get automatic completion again. And now it's requiring me an authentication token, which is the token for my BlazeMeter instance or my BlazeMeter account. In this case, I use system.getEnd BC token. This gets the BC token environment variable and use it as a token in my test. And just with this, I can run it, and I run this test at scale in BlazeMeter in several machines. I can increase the values, and it will run in BlazeMeter, automatically scaling the test. And you get, as in this case, nice reporting. You can review all the statistics, and you don't have to worry about infrastructure. You can get the same with, again, with Octoperf, for instance. If we go here, yep, run analysis reports, you get some statistics of some of the executions and the like. So you can do that. And in the future, we plan to add more. So you will have even more options to run your performance tests at scale. Okay, that's great. That's how you usually end your test plan. But that's not, we don't only provide this. If you already have your JMeter test implemented with JMX file, how do you actually migrate to this new tool? Do you have to actually script all of these tests again? Well, in fact, you don't, because we also provide a tool that is JMX to DSL. It's a chart file that you can download from the releases of JMeter DSL, and just providing an JMX file to it. Oh, yeah, it's not in this directory. Okay, so just providing a JMX file, it will automatically convert it and generate the DSL code for it. In fact, the test plan is this one. And this JMX file is the one that I showed you previously. So you get the same test plan that we were using. Usually you will convert it, you will get a result, you will tune it. For instance, here there is no threshold for response time, and you will probably want to remove some of these parts. Check the comments on the code, but in general it's a good start, and it saves you a lot of effort. If you see that the conversion is not that optimal, or it's not that accurate, please raise an issue and let us know, and we can improve it, you know. So now that we have shown all the JMeter DSL, let's review some of the benefits. Well, with JMeter DSL, you get JMeter benefits, so the popularity, tools and ecosystem, flexibility and extensibility, the Java ecosystem. You also get all the benefits of Java code benefits. Well, there is one thing I missed, so I'll show you right now. One thing that you can easily do that was not easily done on JMeter is modularization. If you want to do the same request twice, for instance, you can just copy paste quite easily. But not only that, you can take advantage of the IDE's features. For instance, if I want to create like a method for this, let's say, okay, my sampler, and it automatically modularizes the test. You see, it's easy to have everything in one place and reuse it. I can even create variables with this thing, like, I don't know, domain, or even specify as parameters and change URL. Let's do URL and put, oh, well, this well, anyways, you can change the domain here and Abstracta 1 in one and Abstracta 2 in the other, and like. So you get the idea, and you don't have to manage different JMX files. Okay, so going back to benefits, You get a Git friendly, it's easy to review changes. You get embedded docs, as we shown, code modularization, IDEs. You can get all the power and features of IDEs. You can even debug your test plans in JMeter in the IDE with JMeter DSL. You get test plans readability and maintenance easier for doing. Extensibility, you can create your own samplers and do some POCs without having to create your own UI elements on top of that, so it's easier for prototyping. You get you if you want, you don't only have to you don't have to implement your test on Java if you don't. If you use Groovy, Kotlin, Scala, whatever JVM language, you can create your test in those languages and use just the JMeter Java DCL as a library. So there is support for all those JVM languages and more. You also foster collaboration between devs and performance experts or QA. And on top of all that, you get additional benefits like you get statistic assertion or acceptance criteria, JUnit integration, which means that just as your test is a JUnit test, you get integration with any continuous integration service. You get all reporting support already built in that on your continuous integration service. You don't have to actually install any plugin on Maven. You don't have to install any plugin on your continuous integration. Everything will run smoothly without including anything else. Well, you get JMX to DSL as well. Live dashboards are free of charge. We also provide a lot of knowledge and good practices, as I already mentioned, about JMeter usage. And we are always trying to be helpful. So if you have doubts about JMeter DSL, we have the user guide, but also you can create issues in GitHub repository. We have a Discord channel. You can add discussions on GitHub repository. So we always try to be as helpful as possible to help you start using JMeter DSL or to understand how JMeter works in some sense. We do provide this user guide that many users have let us know that it was a great resource for them. So my final call to action is please become part of it. We don't want this to be an Abstracta thing. We want this to be a community thing. We want to build the best tool for doing performance testing that we can. So please become part of it. Just asking questions, just asking for features or reporting bugs is a great contribution. If you can help us contribute, like actually coding thing, it will be awesome. But again, please help us. You can give us a star on the repository, on the GitHub repository that will give JMeter DSL more visibility so all our users can find it and start using it. But not only that, giving it a start to the repository allows us to know that the community is really interested in this and we should invest more time and more effort on features in the JMeter DSL. So this is very important. Well, you have the user guide, so you can check it. There is this sample project, and please reach in Discord channel. So that's basically it, guys. I hope you enjoy it. And now some time for Q&A. Thank you.